Hello, everybody. It is Reluctantly Woo Woo, and it is Heather here.
And it's Deb. Hi.
So, this is episode 12 of Reluctantly Woo Woo. And the reason why we call it Reluctantly Woo Woo is because we want to talk about the things that we define as woo woo. Woo woo are like things that are unbelievable, seemingly unbelievable, really, that defy the logical mind. Right? And that we've been, reluctant about believing, but like we explored them and saw, oh, wait a minute, there is something to this. maybe if this person's having results and this person, maybe there's something to it. And so we're reluctant about these, what are quote unquote called alternative things. But really they're not. I've been, and so today we're talking about coming out of the spiritual closet. And it was interesting because I we'll usually talk before and be like, what do you want to talk about? And I, text them and I was like, hey, let's just because usually I'm like an outliner and planning things, I was like, what could be easy? And I was like, how about we talk about this? And she was, Deb, what did you say in your text to me?
I said, that's so weird because that's basically the same topic I've been kind of thinking about. I think you said what was, I forget how you phrased it, but what made us skeptical, or, why are we kind of, like funny about talking about our woo-woo things or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, I just feel like that's, for me, the topic that I'm very interested in talking about is why am I like kind of closeted about, around certain people, not everybody. If I know somebody's already on board with it, I'm usually pretty open, but I'm a little hesitant sometimes to put my spirituality on blast. I think you're muted.
Okay, hear me now?
Yep.
Technology. While you were talking, all of a sudden it just went blank, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And then I had to unattach my headphones, and so I heard half of what you said, but I know it. So like,
exactly.
So I think that it's important to talk about like what are like. When we're reluctant about we're calling it coming out of the spiritual closet because that's what it is specifically for us, about like being more open about, these like what people call woo woo type of things, energy work being the main one. Right. But I'm curious, I think let's talk about just our background first. Like, what was your background growing up? Like, what were the beliefs that you had about, and we don't have to like, not long form, but like beliefs that you had about life, right?
Yeah.
That you be reluctant about, like, feel like you need to stay in the spiritual closet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, interesting. I was raised in a Catholic family. I grew up in Maine, and that's probably the most predominant religion there, I believe. We went to church, we did the things which felt a little bit to me. Even then, I used to think we're just doing this to show people we go to church. I don't know that we were necessarily a heavily spiritual family, but there was like belief in God. And sometimes the Christian faiths and the, what we're calling woo-woo don't always align.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting because in some ways they actually are similar, but there's like a little bit of disconnect there sometimes. So there are a little bit of that. And then, but at the same time, my mom's open to this stuff. We didn't acknowledge a lot of it. And as I've been kind of down this path and talked with her, I do notice that she believes in a lot of this too, but it wasn't talked about. It was just kind of, that's kind of crazy stuff that, people don't actually like. I mean, like in the realm of like psychics and things like that, that was always like, yeah, they're just crackpots. They're just making stuff up, that kind of stuff. So when you start to get that messaging, you're like, okay, well, maybe this stuff is just, gimmicks, because people are afraid of it. People are always afraid of what they can't explain. Right.
Yeah.
How about yours?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in conservative Christian home. My undergrad degree is in Bible. I have a master's degree in counseling, it's emphasis on Christian counseling. I was in a ministry for 9 years, that like as a volunteer, right? So I was very much like, nope, this is just what the Bible says, that's it. And so when I think I've shared this before, when when the movie The Secret came out, I remember watching it. The whole panel of the people that were on that were on Oprah. And I remember seeing that. Oprah was on every day at 4:00 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. And I remember watching that episode and thinking, like, they're ridiculous. Like, not everything is energy. Metal is metal. Nothing's moving through it. And I just thought they were so ridiculous. And then it's funny because years later, then I was reintroduced to it, and I was like, something clicked, and I was like, this kind of makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're constantly thinking negative things, right? Like, how are you not supposed to find negative things? Because you're like, if you're looking for an Easter egg, you're not going to find grass because you weren't looking for grass, right? You're looking for the Easter egg, even though there's grass all around. And so things started to make sense a little bit more. And that was when I was in a point of healing my body and changing my diet. And I'm just skeptical by nature. Like, I want to be able to logically show me it, that it works. And so when I started, I would say, even when I started changing my diet, right, I started having people make comments to me, people that were in that Christian world, right, make comments to me about oh, your new age food. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm eating food that literally the Bible talks about.
Yeah.
And the shit that you're eating was made by some company that just got developed in the past 50 years. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't even seen the light of day. It's not even food. It's a food-like product. So how is mine new age stuff? How is it new age? And so I started to just think more for myself beyond, what I was taught. And just started opening up. And so when I learned about that body code, I was still I have shared when somebody did work on me, I was like, this is ridiculous, but whatever.
Right.
And felt the shifts inside of me. And I was like, oh, I guess I have to admit that I was wrong. And maybe there is something to this.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's interesting what happens when you challenge those ingrained beliefs, right? So most of us, if you are raised with some sort of religion, those can run pretty darn deep. And not knocking religions, it's interesting because the more that I dig into it, and a lot of people will address the religious aspects of it, and a lot of it's just interpretation. It's the way that different faiths have interpreted the Bible to think that this stuff is wrong, but then at the same time, Jesus was a healer, So,
and even as you say that, there is a big part of me, Deb, that I'm like, oh, my mom's going to watch this and I'm going to hear it, hear it. Right?
Yeah.
And even within that, Freddie just put a comment that's dangerous. What's dangerous, Freddie? I want to hear more about that. But even when I started doing this energy work, right, and I told my parents about it, and I was like, oh, I was getting certified, and my parents were driving through, heading home from a trip, and they stopped here in Charlotte, and my dad had a headache, and I was like, oh, can I just, because I needed to work on so many people for my certification. And so he's like, yeah, sure. Well, I released a couple of trapped emotions, and he was like, yeah, my headache's gone. Right. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something here. So I asked if I can work on the heart walls, and then, it was like, yeah, but then something switched, and it was that's evil stuff. And I was like, how is it different than going to somebody calls himself a pastor and is like, you're healed.
Right.
Or going to your Bible study and saying, can you pray, that God will heal me? Well, God gives us tools, right? So why can't we use them?
Right.
And there are times, and I don't think my dad would ever listen to this, but I would say this even if he was, he would ask me to do some work on him. And after he'd give me this whole spiel about how it's not of the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, then I just won't ever do work on you again. That's totally fine. It's less work for me. Right.
Right.
And then a couple weeks later, he texted me. He's like, hey, I hurt my knee. Can you do some work on me? And I was like, no. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, that's evil. Why? I can't do that. And he's like, please, will you just do some work on me? Okay. And a couple of days later, I get a text, and he's like, thanks, my knee's all better. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And so when we take the time to actually think about things and like release all of the gunk, right? That we've been like implanted into our minds, right? And think it's like, oh, wait a minute, this makes sense. But as Freddie just commented, he said, oh, that's dangerous. When I said, what? He said, thinking. Like, thinking is dangerous.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Critical thinking is very dangerous.
Very dangerous. And we can go off on tangents about that. We won't.
Right. Yeah.
But, when it comes to like, so you and I both get to this point where we're like, wait a minute, like there really is something to all this stuff.
Right. But I'm still hesitant sometimes to share it with people, right? I know that that's something that, I am sometimes challenged with is, as I was saying at the start, when I know you're already on board, I'm all about these conversations. Like this stuff excites me. I think it's fascinating. I don't know specifically how to explain quantum physics and all the stuff that sort of explains how this works, but I don't know, it's awesome. But I'm very like a little still, there's some resistance in anybody that I think is a skeptic. I don't know why I care what they think, but I somehow I'm like, I'll just keep that under wraps because I don't want to hear it from you. I don't want you to tell me I'm crazy or whatever it is.
Right. So there's the fear of like somebody telling you that you're crazy, basically a fear of somebody thinking something about you that's not true.
Right.
Right. That's, for a lot of people that may be the fear. Because for everybody, when they're afraid to like come out of, whatever closet that they're in, right? Mm-hmm. They're afraid that people are going to think something of them, whether it's that they're going to think something about me that's not true. That's a big one for me. I not like it when somebody thinks something of me that is completely false. I don't know why, but it chaps my ass. It drives me crazy.
Right.
So
there's a quote that I often see going around Instagram that I love, and I may not get it perfect, but it's something about the version of me that you've created in your mind is not my responsibility.
Right. Exactly.
It's easy to say, sometimes not always easy to act upon.
Yeah. So we're afraid that they're going to think something differently about us than is true. And like for us, that's like, oh, I don't want them to think that. Or we're going to think, they're going to think that a lot of people use the term judge.
Yes.
Right? This one drives me crazy because people are like, oh, you're judging me. Like, you can see somebody who's overweight and you say like, well, they're overweight, like their immune system, they're more prone to getting ill because they're overweight. And they're like, you're judging. No, that's not judging, right? That's observing, just the same way I'm observing you, Deb, have brown hair, right? Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that. And then they'd be like, mostly, right? Right. But if you weren't accepting of your gray hair and I was like, you have mostly brown hair with some gray hair, and you're like, how dare you point that out? I can't even believe you did that. Right. That would be because you haven't accepted that one on your own. Right. Judging is like, you're this thing, whether it's you're overweight, you're unhealthy, you're woo-woo, you're this, therefore you deserve to burn in hell. Right? Like judging is putting this condemnation onto somebody, saying that they're not deserving because they're that thing, versus just like, observing. Like I can look outside and be like, trees are green. That's an observation, right? But if somebody is hurt by it because they haven't accepted it themselves, then we feel
that's what I was going to say. When you put it that way, I'm like, oh, okay. So it's always a reflection of what you're actually uncomfortable with about yourself. Because we've said that all the time. If you tell me that I'm a purple penguin, I'm going to laugh at you because I know not true.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And if you tell me right now that I have ridiculous hair, I'd be like, yep, you're right. All the time, which I have, but I like it to have curly hair. You can only do so much, like you can only control it so much, like if I was like so attached to, oh my gosh, I did all this to my hair. No, it doesn't look good. Like, and you said that, I'd be like so hurt thinking that you're judging me. It's only because I'm not accepting, this curly mop head mess that I have.
Right.
Yeah. And so when people are afraid, right, of like coming out, so to speak, right, like we think that, oh, I'm afraid that people are going to reject me.
Right.
And that is true. And it goes even beyond that. when you think about like how we're hardwired as humans, you think about how like we used to live as tribes, and we used to live without electricity, without running water, without all these things, and there was safety in being in a tribe. And if you did something and the tribe rejected you and they like deemed you as an outcast, right? Now you're walking around nature, the earth, right? Now you're just a moving target for animals, a lone moving target for animals to come and devour you. Right? But when you're in a tribe, right, there's safety and protection in that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally like when we think about like trapped emotions and trauma and wiring, like this stuff is wired in us like for however long we've been here.
Right? It's amazing how much our primal brains still rule what we do when we think we're so far removed from that form of human being, but we're not.
But we're not
fully evolved.
No. So I'm going to ask you, if you got to the place where like you fully embraced like this woo-woo side of yourself, what was the thing that you let go of to get to that place?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm mostly there. So it is the letting go of worry about other people's opinions. Because I mean, as we all evolve and move toward different phases of our lives, different versions of ourselves, whatever it is, people fall away, right? Like there's people I just don't talk to anymore for I don't know what reason, but they've phased themselves out of my life. Not I'm thinking of examples of not people I had a fight with, nothing like that. You just kind of drift apart. It clears the space for something else. And so I guess I just have like I said, there's still a little bit of me that sometimes is like, I don't want to talk about it with certain people. I think for me, it's often in my full-time job because I don't want to get judged there. That's probably the last little place. But even then, like the folks that I have brought it up to, nobody gives a crap. That's what you do in your own time. That's super cool, you know? So it's the letting go of if it means people are going to shun me, walk away from me, kick me out of the tribe, whatever it is, I'm going to be fine. I have another tribe over here,
And so that was one of the things I did write little notes like beforehand because I just need to when I'm processing things. Is that like when you're like coming out and embracing like who you feel the most aligned to be, right? That people you love are going to reject you. Well, not are. They may, right? I can't say they definitely.
Maybe I'm surprised and they embrace you for it because I've experienced a lot of that too.
Mm-hmm. So, right. Yeah. Right. And at the end of the day, there's going to be people that are more aligned with you that are waiting for you to show up to the party. They're like, where have you been? Like, I've been looking for you.
Right.
And just like, to your point, mine, like I look back at like, when I started going to school for health coaching in 2006, so we're talking 14 years ago, right? There's a lot of people who are vastly different in my life. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, they're not people that I would be friends with necessarily now because we just have totally different lifestyles. Right? I mean, granted, we even live in different places too, but like how we feed each other, not each other, how we feed ourselves, like, how we take care of our bodies, like, all of those things are so vastly different, mm-hmm. And we're friends with people typically based on proximity and on shared, what's the word I'm looking for?
Shared values, shared experiences.
Yeah. I have like pre-period brain, so words are
yeah.
But yes, yeah. And so like it's just natural that like people are going to move in and out of your life and we're afraid like, oh my gosh, I can't lose these friends. But I mean, you're always losing friends.
Right. Right. And you're gaining new ones, as you said. And I even think I do have some friends that have, I've been friends with over time. And then, you move in different directions. It just depends on the depth, I think, of the relationship. But sometimes it's like, I'll get teased. Oh, you're just the, crazy little yoga girl into all her stuff or whatever, like, yep. And you're into your wine and I don't know what your hobbies are, but okay. Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen, and this week I saw a lot of this week has been really cool. As you know, like when I work with people, we do coaching, which is the conscious mind combined with doing energy work. And it's so fun because especially, with women, it's fun, of course, but when it's with men, it's even more fun to me.
Yeah.
There's one client who has just in the cycle of judgment of himself for so long. And if he would like fall off the wagon when it came to eating healthy or taking care of himself, he would just beat himself up and just go down a spiral for sometimes weeks. Right? And we were talking the other day and he was like, he's like, well, sorry, Charlie's making funny noises right now. He usually go down spiral, but he was like, well, I was like, okay, I'll eat this and then I'll just get back on track. And I was like, do you hear yourself right now? And he's like, what? And I'm like, there's no judgment in your voice about what you did. And he's like, oh, like, cause like we're releasing all of the stuff that's getting him so much more aligned and connected. And like a couple other calls this week, it was still like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was no big deal. It was just like, nope, not going to do it. It doesn't align with me. And it just wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I should do. It was like, no, it just doesn't work for me. Or, oh, I screwed up here and that's okay because like, I'm just going to move forward. And when you own, like, and I, when I was working for Tony Robbins, I remember they were always like, just own your power. And I said, what the heck does that mean? Well, now I get it. Right. And it's like, because I had to have all these trapped emotions and trauma released from me to like, oh, this is what this is like when you're aligned and connected with yourself. Right? When you're aligned and connected with yourself, whatever closet you want to come out of, it's going to be easy because you're like, I love me.
Yeah, and exactly.
If nobody else loves me, oh, well.
Yeah.
It's when we're in the place of rejecting ourselves that we're fearful of other people rejecting us.
I think that's very true. And getting very, very clear on your own personal self-image of who you are. I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I certainly, I don't drink a lot anymore. And that was something that used to be a difficult thing for me not to do. And it's now, I mean, I can go out and just be like, I don't know. I don't really feel like it. It's not a struggle not to. And I think it's because I no longer view myself as someone who needs to drink.
Yeah, I love that. And what's very interesting when it comes to like coming out, like for like me coming out of the spiritual closet, it's like I am so certain about what this work does that I'm willing to like somebody call me ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Because I know that the changes I've seen in myself, the changes that I've seen in my clients, I would be not, like it would be cruel of me to not talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because if there's something that can serve and to help someone get out of pain, right, and I don't tell them about it, right, that would be really mean. And not to say that there aren't times. Sometimes it's like, that there's a solution, but the person just wants to stay in pain.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't, right? But
yeah, I've tried to help a couple people now that have not, I'm like, okay, I guess you're not ready for it, which is okay. Still love you. When you're ready for it, I'll still be here. I think Marie Forleo has some good stuff where she always talks about, and she's, I think she does subscribe to some of these things, but I wouldn't categorize her in the woo-woo space. She's very practical. But she has that whole thing about like the world needs like this special gift that you have to offer. There's something unique that you have to bring to the table. And you are doing a disservice to everyone else when you don't follow that. So I think that's part of it that's helped me in the spiritual closet thing is in the past, I guess, year, I don't even know, but relatively recently, it has become just so deep of a little voice calling, whatever it is, like you have to do this, like you don't have a choice anymore. This is something that you have to do and you have to share. And so as I've been doing that and as I've been seeing people be helped by it, it kind of bolsters your own confidence in, okay, well, I know this is something. So you're, like you said, how could I not share it with as many people as I can?
Right. The pain, like some people do things because they're running towards pleasure and some people do things because they want to run away from pain. Either way, it doesn't matter, whatever your driver is. Mm-hmm. And for those people who are like, they would label themselves people pleasers, and like talk to them about the idea of they think they're pleasing that person in the moment, right? But then they're always disappointed later, like themselves are always disappointed. And we have to remember that like it may like hurt to disappoint those who expect something from you and who expect you to be a certain way, to have a certain role in their life, and it's going to hurt you even more in the long run, the more that you stay out of alignment with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody, I mean, that's what, talk about codependent relationships and stuff with alcoholics, is why a lot of times, people go out of rehab and then go back into it, is because their environment, right, doesn't support, the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody has to be really incredibly strong, like really strong internal fortitude to come back, from rehab, to go into the same environment and not go back into those old devices. I mean, you have to make new friends, all that. And like create a different environment. And when it comes to like coming out of the closet, spiritual closet, for us, it's like, woo, I look at my circle of friends now, and, there are people that I do plant medicine with, people that like understand energy healing, people that we can have deep conversations with, right? So different than the group of friends that I had years ago. It's just different conversations. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. It's just now I have people in my life that are into these things.
Right.
Yeah. So power
in numbers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any thoughts or any? Okay, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do you notice your willingness to talk more about this stuff? This might not be a fair question. And since, you've had a lot of energy work done on you.
Yeah.
Right? How much do you think that that's played into like you being willing to share more about it?
Absolutely huge, for sure. And I think that's kind of where it started with me too, is, we did this work and I just started to see things like just shift in huge ways in my life, you can see it from the external perspective, right? So people looking out, even if they're like, you can be all peaceful and meditate and all that stuff, but like, some people want the measures of success being like, are you bringing in more money? Do you have a nice car? Like whatever those physical manifestations of it are, those have shown up as well, which is excellent proof to some people. But, every time that things had happened that are like, kind of like, whoa, I know I've told the story many times about losing my voice, and then you did work on it, and it literally came back in that moment. And that was a pivotal moment where I was like, I was bought in, but then I was like, okay. And there were people I was with at the time. Like I was talking to people or whispering to people, and then all of a sudden started croaking, and I'm like, oh, it's finally coming back. And then I get a text. It's like, hey, I just did some work on your voice. And I was like, oh, okay. That's super weird. So I had like 4 people witness it, and they were all like, but it was in a yoga studio too. So it was a group of people that are kind of like, okay. Like it's not really coincidental, I guess, because I was with people that already kind of bought into their,
right.
Are coincidences, or are they things that coincide? You know what I mean? Like they were in that kind of thought pattern anyways. So, I was already surrounded with a lot of that as I started to really witness this level of it. So, but again, I now believe that was because everything is always putting you on the path, right? So, yeah. And I do, I'm much more comfortable with it now. And because I have really concrete examples. So when I do want to tell somebody about it, I'm like, let me just share with you some of my personal experiences. And then they're always like, seriously? And now as I'm working on people and getting actual client experiences and testimonials, they're like, wow, okay. All right. Yeah, sure. Let's try this for me too. And it, you just open more people up to it. So, and that makes me less shy about sharing it because, every new incidence is further proof to me too.
Yeah.
Because I think there's still always like that little bit of skepticism. Like you said, every time you start working on someone new, you're like, God, I really hope this works.
All the time. And then on the phone and going like, it's not a thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess this stuff works every single time. And I work on multiple people every day. Like, so it's, and I think that could be, I think it's a healthy thing, but it definitely makes it fun for me still, like I'll take it for granted and I'm never surprised by it, because there are times when you work on people and it doesn't work. And so it's like, what else is there? Like, what are we missing? That's the question, because, energy, everything is energy. And I laugh saying that, but everything is. And so we may think about, like, we're working on, the person may present with, like, pain in their back. Right. And then if you think that that's what we're working on, but that has nothing, that's just a symptom of a whole other problem.
Right.
And that's, like, for me, like, coming out of, going from this person who, like I said, was like, I was, super conservative Christian, ministry, da, 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 da. And I'm like, so many people in my world knew me as that. Like, I was a young life leader for 9 years. Is that I had to just suspend the thought, like, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? Because I just kept seeing, like, for me, like, I'll talk about, like, plant medicine. For me, ayahuasca has been life-changing. And in the Christian community, it's like, no, don't talk about that. That's evil, right?
Right.
And, like, it is the one thing, like, that for me, that shifted, like, it to me, ayahuasca is like the body code on steroids, like on rocket fuel, right? Mm-hmm. And, to talk about it and knowing that some people are going to, like, think that I'm going to burn in hell, I had to be willing to be like, that's fine, but I don't get depressed anymore. Like, and right. I used to go down the depression slide all the time. Okay? I don't have those thoughts in my head. And people are like, well, you need to have Jesus and da, da, da. And I'm like, I mean, like I said, undergrad degree in Bible, like, all this stuff, I've said the sinner's prayer 1,000 times, over, and still struggle with being depressed.
Right.
Changing my diet, doing deep trauma work, through ayahuasca, through energy work, is what changed. So it's like, I can't not talk about it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think some level of skepticism is certainly healthy. Like, it's not good to just blindly walk around following things, which will stay away from the religion talk on that topic. But, I do think it's good to have a healthy level of questioning. What is this? Yeah. But at the same time, there's enough proof that, and it is, I think, as far as, like, just admitting it and sharing it with other people, I think there's also something about you when been on this planet for a few years, you start to realize not everybody is going to like me. Not everybody, I don't really care. Actually, like, that's cool. You can not believe in what I believe in. I will still send you love. You cannot like me. You cannot want to talk to me. It's cool. I got plenty of people to talk to and plenty of people who do care about me. So I'm okay.
So just wrapping this up, a couple of points of some things that we said, and I just want to, like, put this up there just because I'm such a visual person, is that one, that we're biologically wired to want to belong. And all you need to do is find a new group to belong to. And there's always someone as freaky as you are. Right. And we're specifically talking about, like, the spiritual woo-woo, but it's, true for anything, right? Mm-hmm. You, like, find a new group. And I know that's hard because family and history and all that kind of stuff. But if you let go of the belief that, like, I'm never going to have any friends anymore, right? Then remember also that, like, those people might reject you, and the other people who are believing the things that you're believing now are waiting for you to come along and, like, hey, I need a friend like you.
Yeah.
Right? And then the last thing is that, like, it may crap, I just deleted it. It may hurt you to disappoint them. And it may, like, in the moment, because they expect you to be a certain way and you're afraid of, like, turning over the apple cart. And it's going to hurt you in the long run to stay in their box.
Yeah.
And so what ultimately is worth it for you, right? Is staying under their constraints. And who's even they, right? Parents, society, that kind of stuff. Right? Yeah. Is it worth staying under there and suffering yourself and being silent about something that you're passionate about? Then, just, hey, they don't like me, they don't like me. And
Right.
you know, it is what it is. So, okay. Well, I had fun. I like kind of riffing like this.
Yeah.
Plan things. I definitely am a planner, so it's nice sometimes to be like, oh, we're
pushing you out of your comfort zone a little.
I know. There's a both end. We need to have both ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let us know if you struggle to like come out of like the spiritual, like the woo woo like closet, and like talk about things, whether you're like, I have an altar that I say my prayers at, each morning, or that I don't even know. Oh, I will say this. My one other fear about like coming out of the woo woo closet is I don't want to look like that person.
Yes.
Right? Like who's wearing white linen all the time, is not shaving their armpits, right? Eats bird season nuts, and like, is just like so out of touch with life.
Yes.
That's always been my fear of
Right.
the woo-woo stuff, is that I'm like, I don't want to be that person. And I always told my friends, like, you have full permission if you see me go down that rabbit hole, like to, Heather, rein back in. You've done too much energy work. You've done too much plant medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Because there really is a balance.
There is. And yeah, I think, maybe we sound like we're judging some of those people, but that was certainly one of my things too, is I didn't want to be that like wacky. Yeah. Just, I don't need a crystal in my pocket to accomplish any of my daily tasks, or, I am okay without all these devices. So
yeah. And again, we're not saying that any of those are like they're wrong or anything. It's just that like it's our own perceptions, right? About things like, and that's what we're afraid that somebody else's projection is going to be on us. And it's just like, oh, okay, because that person, is walking around in white linen and eating, nuts and seeds all day long, and just like, good vibes only. Like they're in their place in their journey, and that's okay.
Yep.
Right? And somebody's always going to be further along the scale, the like extreme scale than you are, and somebody's going to be on this other end.
Right.
And on the continuum, somebody could be like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to be like that, or I do want to be like that, or oh, how can I get to be like that? Like it's always going to be there. People are always going to be. You're always going to have people to look to and think, nope, don't want to be like them, and other people be like, wow, I'm so glad I grew so much, and I'm not like that, right?
Yeah.
Be okay with, people are going to judge you. Great. Doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah. Get happy with yourself, and none of it will matter.
Yeah. And that releasing a heart wall is so helpful for doing that. So, yeah. So let us know if you've had some struggles with like coming out of the spiritual closet. We'd love to hear about it. If you're interested in learning more about like the energy work that we do, the body code, the emotion code, you can go to my website, heathere.com, and then I'm going to you can reach out to Deb. Here's her email. Her website's getting there. It's almost done.
I officially, just before we got on here, actually bought so I have a URL. I actually just bought the Squarespace. I got to build it this weekend. There will be a website by the next time that we talk. It might not be fancy yet, but it will have all the right information anyway.
Good. Yeah. I'm proud of you. Here's my website. So let us know again. And we'd love to hear from you and help you to release whatever's holding you back from really aligning with yourself, to get to that place where you're like, yeah, I don't care anymore because I'm just so aligned with me. It's such a beautiful place.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad I'm here. Glad I'm here.
Yeah.
And there's always more to go too. Not perfect by any stretch, but
this is true. It's a constant evolution, but that's all good. All right.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day, night, whenever you're listening to this.
Wherever you are.